my biggest worry was making sure that Nuxt stayed independent. So everything I was looking at, all the communication, pretty much all the conversations I had were all geared around this.
Hi, I'm Paul, and joining with me today is Daniel Rowe, lead dev over at Nuxt Labs, here to talk about the recent news surrounding Nuxt Labs joining Vercel. In this episode, Daniel and I talk about the different ways that Nuxt provides its zero config options and how this will be enriched and expanded upon with the upcoming partnership and resources provided by Vercel. Before wrapping things up finally with what this means for you, me, and the everyday dev using Nuxt. So without further ado, here's our episode with Daniel Rowe. Hi there, and welcome to PodRocket. My name is Paul, and joining with me is Daniel Rowe. Welcome to podcast, Daniel.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
So that's the big news. It's Nuxt Labs joining Vercel. What was the inception of that? Did they come to you guys? Were you just like hanging out and you're like, by the way, like, would be happy to integrate? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I first found out about it from Sebastian. I should say that Nuxt Labs is a company that was created by Sebastian Chopin. Sebastian and his brother Alex created Nuxt originally. So although I lead it now, I wasn't around at the time, and I definitely didn't create it, even though sometimes people seem to think I did. It's just not the case. And he created, or they created a company at Nuxt Labs, which has created products and services in the Nuxt ecosystem. And they sponsored me. They sponsored me for a few years, but I should say, I wasn't an employee at Nuxt Labs, so I don't have maybe all the inside details on exactly the initial approach. But Sebastian let me know. I think over dinner, he said, "Oh, by the way, I just wanted to say that Vercel have reached out, that they're actually very interested in acquiring Nuxt Labs," which that was the beginning of it. It happened pretty quickly, I think, after that conversation. I don't know how long he'd been chatting to Guillermo or the team there, but yes, that's how I found out.
And so, like, this product suite that Nuxt Labs has been working on over the years, the pieces that stuck and the pieces that people use, are those going to transpile likely into plugging into Vercel infrastructure and then being reskinned in a way that is it's like just for Nuxt? Like, it's the same stuff, but it's running on Vercel bones, it's integrated into their system? Or is it going to be maybe a resouping, a rewriting, a reforming of those primitives that you might find from Nuxt Labs?
The three products that are sort of most active right now, well, four, I guess. So Nuxt UI Pro is the first one. So it's been a premium theme, and what's going to happen is that it's going to be made free and open source. So it's going to be rolled into a new release of Nuxt UI, which I think is scheduled for September, so pretty soon. And yes, everyone's going to have access to it. So that's not specific to Vercel, and that is going to see obviously continued development. And Benjamin Kanak is leading that. He's done an amazing job, and that's really very exciting. Then there's Nuxt Studio, which has been it's been closed source, and it's going to become open source as well and self-hostable, so that people will be able to have the same kind of experience. So previously, obviously, it was a single vendor, so like a cloud server. So you would sign up to Nuxt Studio, and then you would be able to integrate that hosted version with your website. Whereas now you'll be able to spin up your own instance of Nuxt Studio and integrate it with your website, and it will be open source as well. So again, that you should be able to host that anywhere. Then Nuxt, I'll try to make sure I don't forget any of the products. The Nuxt Hub, and this is one of the most exciting for me. It's also going open source, but more than that, it's going agnostic. So previously, it was like an interface to Cloudflare, and Cloudflare have a phenomenal suite of products, which made a very good choice for the MVP for Nuxt Hub. I have been for quite some time asking Sebastian to make it agnostic, because one of the things that we really stand for as a Nuxt team is for things to be swappable and for people to have choice about where they deploy and where they choose to put their products. And I think I've worried for a while that the fact that it was on Cloudflare, which is a great choice to deploy Nuxt, but I worried that people thought it might be the only choice. So anyway, he's going to be making that agnostic, which should mean people will be able to use it with lots of different providers. Obviously, Vercel would be one of those, but equally, Cloudflare will continue to be. So that's, I think, one of the things I'm most excited about. And people will be able, again, to self-host that. Even at the moment, Nuxt Hub is, it's not a service that takes over your account. So it basically creates resources in your own Cloudflare account and gives you a better way of managing them and integrating them with your Nuxt projects. So it's not like it's a whole set of infrastructure providing all the KB or the databases. It's more like it's a coordination layer. So if you've ever come across Laravel Vapor, for example, it was a project that it did something very similar for Laravel and AWS. It enabled you to run your Laravel app as a serverless application. And again, it connected into your AWS account and then provisioned resources and managed them for you. So I really like that as a model because it means you're ultimately still in control. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Sebastian and Rihan are working on that, getting Nuxt Hub agnostic. But that's definitely something to follow, and I'll be following with very, very eager interest.
And I guess the benefit of going somewhere like Vercel is one of those agnostic arms that you could grow onto it is there's a lot of magic that Vercel can provide out of the box for if you want better images, path caching. They have infra. So I'm seeing like good opportunities of, hey, now all of that, there's bits and bobs that might not have been easily reached for in some other adapter. Now you're agnostic, you can supercharge it.
We've built Nuxt from the beginning to have a lot of primitives that are swappable. So we have the Nuxt image component, for example, and I think we have over 20 providers you can use for the image CDN layer. We have a fonts module, which again, I think 6 or 7 different providers that you can use to get your fonts, whether that's Google Fonts or Bunny or FontShare or FontSource or whatever, Adobe. And the same is true with databases and key value stores as well. And the great thing, obviously people can choose. They can build their own project, like Lego building blocks. This is what I want. And I'm going to grab KV from Upstash, and I'm going to grab my compute from Hetzner, and I'm going to, they could do that. But obviously one of the nicest things is when you have a zero config setup. And so we, at the moment, have zero config deploys for Nuxt to a number of providers, including Cloudflare, Lendify, Vercel, AWS Amplify, and I think there are others. I don't want to say that's the only few. And it's amazing because we are able to detect your environment when you're deploying. Azure Static Web Apps is another. We're able to detect your environment when you're deploying, build the right kind of output that platform is looking for, and as much as possible, use the primitives that platform provides. So platforms that provide a whole set of primitives are best for that zero config, because it means if you haven't chosen some other provider, you can just hook in to what is available on the platform. So Cloudflare have a great set because they have databases, they have key value, they have the sort of compute as well, and image optimization. So we can do that. And yes, Vercel hopefully have exactly the same. And I think that's one of the things that we will be able to really hook into, so that you get that great zero config experience there. But I mean, just to be very clear, our aim is to have that experience as much as possible wherever we can. So wherever the deployment provider exposes the primitives, we're hooking into them so people can have that zero config experience.
Yeah, because why not? More the merrier for the option you can give folks.
I mean, there are two different things going on here. So one is the value of ease of use and frictionless development and deployment. That's a really high value that we have. So the idea that the stuff that you are struggling with and working with should be the challenge of converting the business idea into code, right? the frictions that exist shouldn't be coming from the framework you choose. They shouldn't be coming from the platform you choose. They should be things that you're working out in terms of your coding. So the friction from the framework should be nil as much as possible. And so if we can have a zero config deployment, for example, that is just great. It means people can iterate quickly, they can make changes, they can build things, and so we want that. The other thing that we want is openness and choice. And I think choice is one of the fundamental values of the web, almost as close as possible to a fundamental value as you can find. I mean, even if you think about the original Unix philosophy of like composable pieces of an operating system that work together to create something that is powerful. If you think of the web as having lots of interchangeable, lots of decentralized choices, you can have any email server you want. You can have any, DNS, or you can have any name server you want. Like there are a lot of things where you get to choose. That's what the web looks like. And walled gardens are unique in a way to this current era of web, where you have social networks, which are like Twitter, for example, closing the doors, preventing API access, preventing people from accessing it freely, which I just want to say is very foreign to the whole idea of this web is an open garden to people to access. And so, sorry, I'm getting too philosophical, but I mean, we really want both of those things to be true in Nuxt. We want to have choice, so you can choose to go wherever you want. Nuxt should be making it possible for you to make those moves easily. Now, it shouldn't be adding any kind of lock-in. There's nothing more annoying, or it really makes you resentful as a user if you experience that. So it's about openness and transparency, people being able to move easily. And it's also about frictionless development. So that zero config experience where out of the box, everything just works. And then you can customize it infinitely on top of that. And I know we're talking about deployment providers here, but this is also true with a lot of other things when it comes to Nuxt. So for example, Vite. We use Vite by default. It's a great experience. People love it. The fast hot reloads, the amazing ecosystem of plugins. But at the same time, we are so committed to the idea of choice that you can pick other choices. You can pick Webpack and RSpack, which we maintain, or you can build your own adapter to use any bundler or plugin that you want. And in fact, it was that desire that led us to create, and Anthony Fu created a package called Unplugin, which actually lets you build plugins that work seamlessly across any bundler, whether that's any of those, or ESBuild, or roll down, or farm, or really any different kind of bundler, because we want people to be able to choose.
The power of choice. And I think, even though you did get philosophical, Daniel, that philosophy is what a lot of people are asking about right now. I'm sure you've been on multiple conversation where people are, they're asking questions about like, what about this and what about that? And it's interesting to hear you put it through the lens of philosophy, because that's what it's all coming back to. And on the Nuxt team, modularity, pluggability, and it's helpful to hear you paint it in the zero config bubble. Like that's the user story that kind of like lets those ethos come through, but it applies to much more than that. Off of the features that they might be more, right? Because there's going to be more things that like Vercel has that maybe it's not in Nuxt right now, or maybe in Nuxt Labs it doesn't exist yet. Do you see anything that might be special or only possible due to the partnership between Nuxt Labs and Vercel that might fall outside of that bubble of the North Star of being everything pluggable and commingling?
There's a huge opportunity for Nuxt at Vercel, because Vercel have this philosophy of framework-defined infrastructure. The idea that what frameworks need to create good, performant, powerful apps should guide the infrastructure they create. And that is it's obviously very flattering as a framework also to basically say, hey, what should we build? Like what are the constraints? What do you need? And so that's an opportunity that obviously Next.js have had. It's an opportunity that SvelteKit have. It's now an opportunity that Nuxt have as well, to say, this is what we need. These are the primitives that we need in a deployment provider, so that it's not just that we're working with what we have, but actually we're specifying. We're saying, this is what we need to create an amazing experience for Nuxt. And that is an incredible offer to a framework. I hope it's very clear the direction that's going. So this is not Vercel saying, hey, we have this framework, this infrastructure, change Nuxt so that it matches that. It's the other way around. It's sort of, how do we as a framework what do we look for in a provider? What do we want? What are the kinds of features we want to be able to integrate with? And yes, that's absolutely something that's going to be a real boon, I think, for Nuxt. And I hope also for Nuxt users on Vercel, because they'll be able to access these primitives that we are specifying. We're basically saying this is what we need to create great experiences for Nuxt. In terms of that modularity, you were asking whether there's anything, I foresee any area in which it's not going to be aligned. And the answer is that we care so strongly. I was saying the other day to somebody that the open source developers, we're not rational in a sense, because we're very driven, and I guess actually this is probably true of everybody, right? So you're driven very much by your values. There are things that you care about that are paramount, that really matter most of all. And I think for people who are working in open source, we're not working in open source to make money. We're not working in open source as a career path. It's much worse to work in open source. You work in open source because you believe in it. You believe in the values that you're working for. You care about the community you're working with. So do I think that we're going to change direction? No, the answer is absolutely not. But I'll answer another question as well. Do I think Vercel are going to ask us to? And the answer is also very much no. So I talked to quite a lot of folk in leadership in the run-up, because obviously I had to decide, is this something I want to be part of? I could have continued leading the Nuxt team, for example, not at Vercel. And very much the vision, I don't want to step in and speak for Vercel in terms of talking about vision, but very much the vision is open. And I think that makes sense, in all honesty, because if I look back to my choices, I've been CTO of a company, I've had a SaaS startup. If I'm looking at where I choose to host my stuff, where I want to build, I don't want to build somewhere that is keeping me because I can't leave. I want to build somewhere where I choose to stay there because they have the best experience. And that is something I really think Vercel get. So I think, at least talking to folk in leadership there, that is very much what I see. That the aim isn't to put barriers up there to prevent people from leaving or to lock them in. It's to create a good experience so that people don't want to go. That's the best kind of lock-in. The lock-in because you choose to stay. So yeah, I think that's really aligned. Any open source project has to be very aligned with where it gets its funding, because you don't want to be pulled in a different direction. It's bad for your own mental health as a maintainer, I can say, if you feel like you're having to compromise between different objectives that you have, like different goals. And if one of those is your own value set, that's a real problem. That's not a situation where I could stay, for example, if I felt that was the case. But that's not what I feel. I feel there's this remarkable alignment of an open vision for the web that really is something we've believed in for a very long time in the Nuxt team. And it's something that from what I can tell, Vercel are very much backing and signing up to.
What about things, Daniel, that are external to the immediate Nuxt offering? So things like V0, which is like incredible for prototyping ideas, because you're talking about ease of getting it out there. You could almost say like scaffolding components and whatever component library you have goes in that bucket as well. It's not the core value you're solving. It's copying a SHA-CN component. It's setting up a layout or whatever. So do you guys look to march towards that North Star by integrating with tools like that?
So the aim for me, in terms of the purpose of Nuxt, is to solve developer problems. So it only exists, and I think a lot of meta frameworks, I think rightly, should only exist to solve the problems of their users, developers. Those problems are things like, how do I create a performant website? How do I reduce boilerplate? Like, there are a lot of problems, but one of the problems is, how do I get going with an LLM? How do I get it to prompt me good components? So as long as those are the problems people are facing, those are problems we need to solve as framework authors. It's not because it's not because LLM generated code is the North Star. It's not the North Star, but it's a need that people have. People are a North Star, and because people have that need, we absolutely want to make LLMs play that with Nuxt. I think that the opportunity to integrate with V0, as in to work with the V0 team to make Nuxt support better, indeed excellent, is a real plus. I'm looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, it'd be really cool if I could hop in V0 and choose like which flavor of components I want to build. To me makes V0 feel stronger, because now that's more open about where I want to take the work and deploy it.
Well, I think that's a good example, really, of a sort of win-win kind of situation where you think this improves V0, it improves a native sort of feature offering of Vercel. It also makes things better for Nuxt users.
I am getting the vibe of like those who collaborate will. I like how you said that's the best lock-in, because you're just the best and you didn't have to do anything. It's one of the best experiences as a user. If I just want to go where it's easiest, where I can deploy my app the fastest. What about the difference between database providers? Some folks will say, you have serverless, so I'm using Neon. I have self-hosted Postgres. If you're on Cloudflare, there's certainly orchestrated node environments that some might find tricky if you've never worked with like a Cloudflare worker, or you never worked with a durable object. Do you see that palette of primitives expanding when you guys start working with Vercel? Do you see them changing or becoming more nuanced in any way, having serverless versus non-serverless offerings? Or do you see that? Curious on your take there.
I mean, I think I'd put an asterisk here. Let's see what happens. So I think the breadth of the primitives that are out there at the moment for databases that we pretty much already support. So we've got a package called unstorage, which is in the un.js ecosystem, which we use in Nitro to provide layered access to different key value stores. And we have another packet which also supports a number of databases. And we have another package called DB0, which integrates with different ORMs to provide access to databases in a sort of provider agnostic kind of way. Now, our database support, particularly given that we have, I think it's maybe 2 or 3 ORMs that we sort of have built-in adapters for. So, I mean, I think that's probably something you would see sort of increasing, maybe different support. But I don't feel like it's the fact that a number of the team are now employed at Vercel is going to change that particularly. I think that's something that we would have wanted, anyway. And probably, so I think if you look at the trajectory of Nuxt and Nitro, or in Nuxt in general, so Nuxt version 2, for example, the server was Connect, a sort of simple node-based server, and it really only existed because we needed some kind of server, but it was very, very minimal. And you could actually attach your own. You could have different kinds of servers, different flavors, and you could hook your Nuxt app in as a middleware. So it wasn't really very server focused. as part of moving into Nuxt 3 and building that from scratch, we created a server. We created Nitro. And in fact, it started out as Nuxt Sigma, we called it. And then it became Nuxt Nitro, and then it became Nitro on its own. And we actually brought it out into under.js org, and now there's actually a Nitro.js org. And so our trajectory is moving to take advantage of some of these things, some of the things that you would look for in a full stack framework, like Laravel, for example. So we have cron job support with Nitro tasks. We have KV support. We have caching. We have databases. Like a lot of these things are things that you need to have in a full stack framework. And so we're gradually moving down that line of providing them, like providing these features, building them in, doing that in an agnostic way as much as possible, using this provider pattern. So if you're looking to see the direction we've been going in for some time, we'll continue to go in. Yes, that's the direction we're going in, but I'm not sure I would say that's related particularly to the Nuxt team. There are 8 members of the core team. 4 of them are joining Vercel, and the other 8 remain independent. So I don't think it's related to this particular acquisition of Nuxt Labs or hiring of those team members.
Is there going to be a difference in the communication style or general domain of like those team members who are independent and those who are in Vercel? How do you see that changing on the Nuxt team?
This isn't a sort of a fresh problem because we've had Nuxt Labs and Nuxt Labs, as much as possible, we've tried to make the boundary quite clear. The Nuxt Labs are supporting or have supported, they have funded a number of the Nuxt team members, but they don't represent Nuxt. They are a separate company. And so we have a governance document, for example, Nuxt/governance on GitHub. And it initially said that Nuxt Labs had no authority over the, what did it say? Nuxt has no authority over the Nuxt project, which is a very interesting thing to say, but you might think, because Nuxt Labs has done so much good for the ecosystem. But we really wanted to make it very clear that the project and its roadmap and its direction is independent, it's community-focused, it's community-based, it's not a company thing. And that feel of the project, what it's like to use Nuxt or be part of that community is very, very important. And that's been true at Nuxt Labs. So the fact that now we've actually added in that Vercel has no authority over the Nuxt project, and Nuxt remains an independent open source project. We've updated the governance guide to say about Vercel as well. I think nothing changes in terms of our feel or what we're like or the direction we go in or how we're governed. It stays how we are. And I really do feel, from my point of view, it's sort of just upsides. So we have the benefits of being part of the Vercel broader team, being able to ask for infrastructure, being able to work with folk, and at the same time we have the independence to be Nuxt, as we have been for the last how many years.
Well, Daniel, this is a great way to put a bow on the conversation, and we can move into the quick round, which is essentially going to be us rapid firing a few things pertaining to that which we talked about. The goal is to answer it in less than 30 seconds, like a sentence or two. So I have 4 bullet points here, and we'll hit them one by one. Okay, so the first one is, what was your first thought when the Vercel deal became official?
So it was probably pure adrenaline. And yeah, talking to people, communicating it, making sure people understood what we cared about and what was going to happen. That was my first concern.
Most exciting thing Vercel brings to the Nuxt ecosystem? Because we talked about a lot just now, so I think you have to pick one.
There's so much to pick, and actually this is one I didn't say. I think it's the people at Vercel. So there are such hugely talented folk, from people like the Next.js team or the Svelte team, to people building infrastructure, and that is a real boon, something I'm really looking forward to.
What's one worry you had going into the deal?
My biggest worry was making sure that Nuxt stayed independent. So everything I was looking at, all the communication, pretty much all the conversations I had were all geared around this. I was reassured at every stage. So it's not something I'm worried about at the moment, but that's absolutely where I started that.
In one sentence, what does this partnership unlock for an average developer?
I think we have opportunities to make Vercel a better place to deploy Nuxt apps. And I think it ensures the long-term sustainability of Nuxt as a project for building great web apps.
Long-term stability is like one of the best things you can ask for, and another great way to put a bow on things. Daniel, it's been a pleasure hearing about this huge change that's happening for Nuxt in terms of the fiber of how it's built, but it's awesome to hear about how everything we've discussed is about it staying the same and staying independent and simply expanding the feature set. I've certainly learned something about Nuxt because, like, having only done the Hello World app with Nuxt, we talked about different data providers, how we can plug in with the server, cron jobs and stuff. So there's a lot to check out. Interesting to see where you bring the project. Just appreciate your time running through it. It's a confusing topic and it's web dev. So everybody's up in arms at all times, wondering what the hell is going to happen. So it's great to be reassured and walked through the thought process of you and the Nuxt Labs team.
It's really nice of you to say. And if you do need any pointers or tips when you're exploring Nuxt, let me know. I'd love to help.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Daniel. It's a pleasure having you.